We're good. For you.
Oh,
Yeah. That's the affirmation. We're great. Woo! Oh, sorry.
There we go. There's the button. And we're live. I always wait for the yellow button. For all of our folks at hashtag SPSM, this is at Doc Foreman. But you'll notice there isn't a blue curtain behind me. This looks like the fireplace of one Mr. Tony Wood, the SPSM production manager. I am talking to you from snowy Coffeyville, Kansas, where there was much drama, and I was almost stranded in Dallas, and I suddenly wasn't, and instead I'm here. It's so exciting. But I have several guests with me tonight. We're going to introduce them a couple at a time, but you can find me at Doc Foreman. You can find the SPSM folks on Facebook. Hopefully you're following on Twitter. And if you have been to SPSM before, you know my next person, my favorite fabulous co-host. It's Mr. Dr. Bart Andrews.
Hey, how's everybody doing out there? Excited to be here tonight. I want to give out a shout out to Sean, stuck on social work, who's going to be doing the Twitter moderation. Sean has been doing an amazing job with that, so a big shout out. If you see Sean out there on the hashtag, give him a shout out. And I think we have a great topic, April. What do you think? Is this going to be good or what?
It was a little challenging for you to get here tonight too.
Yeah, so it's just been one of those. It's been one of those weekends, and so we've been dealing with stomach bug all week long. My son was convinced he had some kind of rare disorder that was going to end his high school career, and he could just stay at home forever and be on the phone. I don't know what illness that is that does that. And now my daughter has it. So it's just been one of those weeks. Good thing that this is remote, so that I can't give you guys the rotavirus.
And we've had sort of a rotating panel, so tonight has been with people's various things going on, sort of the same deal. Really quickly, Dr. Bart Andrews, where can people find you on Twitter? Where can they sort of find you generally?
Oh, great. Thank you, April. I am at Bart Andrews on Twitter. It's that easy, at Bart Andrews. And my day job, I'm Vice President of Clinical Operations at an amazing crisis agency in St. Louis, Missouri, Behavioral Health Response. I'm going to do a shout-out. We just won an award for Right for the Region for this from a local leadership group. It's a huge deal, and our collaborative approach and the fact that we bring lots of different agencies together got major recognition. So I'm really excited about that, and excited to be a part of that. So that's been where I started right after graduate school at BHR on the crisis line almost 17 years ago, and I'm still there, and that's really cool.
And what's going live tomorrow?
And tomorrow going live is The Voice Virtual Online Youth Center. Thank you, April. You really need to do my introductions in the future. We'll flip that around. Hey, DeWitt's on, and DeWitt's on the Twitter feed too.
Hi, DeWitt.
Yeah, so DeWitt's out there. So yeah, we're going live, and maybe DeWitt can give a quick update in 140 characters or less, DeWitt, on where we're at. But yeah, we're really excited about that. And actually, folks were watching. A lot of our folks in the office watched the show last week, and a lot of rave reviews for DeWitt and you, April. Folks loved you, and they loved DeWitt, so that was really cool.
We have several great people on tonight. We also have a first appearance with Tom Cruise, who I'm very excited about, and who's, oops, I better switch the camera, and who's up next. But I want to chat with you all in the SPSM verse about sort of a really common scenario, and then Tom is really going to make this real. So I'm really lucky because of doing this great project with so many of you wonderful people there. Hello on Twitter to DeWitt and Twirl and Swirl and Kendra and Carl Dunn and all. I'm watching. Tony's got a big rolling screen. It's amazing. So what happens is a lot of you all will message me and tell me about things that are happening this week, things that you see, news events that are important, and several of you, I mean, this is how I've met several of you. And so I get a notification from Tom Cruise, and many of you know him because he's been a very important part of our community for quite some time. And he is very familiar with peer spaces and social media related to mental health and suicide, where that topic might get brought up. And he is often works on the side of sort of a good Samaritan, especially for folks who are veterans, which thank you, Tom, because you go places and do things that, because of my license, there'd be some difficulties for me to go there, but those are important places to be. And Tom goes to a new place this week, and I'm going to let him tell his story, whereby he sees something we've seen in other places in the social media verse, and he has this very real experience of the dilemma. And with no further ado, I'm going to put on Tom. Tom, if you could please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, tell us what your Twitter is so people can follow you, and then tell us your story.
All right, thank you, April. My name's Tom Cruise, not the real one, not the actor. Everyone, don't get excited. I'm 20 years, been in the military. I'm stationed down here in Florida, and I had my own suicide attempt in 2010, and ever since then I've been trying to work and solve the mystery around veteran suicides and how I can help and bridge the gap between veterans and civilians and getting them the therapy that they need. So I help a lot through the use of Facebook and through Twitter, and in a veteran's in need, then we usually go out and with whatever group I'm helping and try to either get them the help they need or talk them down and do the peer-to-peer veteran deal. So I'm in a ton of different groups across Facebook and Twitter. Well, this week I went and joined a group that's on Twitter, and I thought it was a veteran group, and it had 6,600 members on it. And I was like, okay. And I started realizing like every post, like 9 out of 10 of them, was someone talking about committing suicide, ways that they were going to try doing it, how they were going to do it, they were going to do it right now. For me, seeing that through a veteran eyes is most of us keep it secret, and you got to read between the lines for us to really understand that the veterans are going to do it. Well, this was blatant and out open, and actually when I looked more into the group, I noticed it was a teen group. So the average ages were 14, 16, 17-year-olds, which then threw me off because I don't really work with the teens. So my then realization started coming, just like any other group, is who is there supporting them, and you see the message under the messages with people that were also had suicide, either ideations or had thoughts. So it was a peer-to-peer again, like we do in the veteran world. But then I also was wondering where would the admins involved in this, and how is it being viewed, and then how do we help? How do we get the help to these kids? Like, where would we even start bridging it? Like, I know in the veteran world, I can do whatever I need to do, call law enforcement, put it out to my veteran groups and get boots on the ground to that guy and get support for him and bridge the gap. But this was literally, how do we do this with the kids that are across the nation? They're from everywhere, from Illinois, you name it, and they were just blatantly putting it out there. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to do this. One was polling. Should I do it by jumping in front of a truck? Should I shoot myself or hang myself? It was very, very disturbing, and my more organized analytical side was thinking, how do we help that? How do we stop that? How do we monitor it? And how do we research it to reduce the numbers and get these people the actual support that they need, bridge that gap between the suicidal to the experts? So that's what I had brought to you this week.
So then you sent Dr. Bill Schmitz an iMessage, and I'm going to pick up just a little bit of the story. So Tom sends me this message, and of course my reaction is, yes, we've really seen this. This happens on 4chan. On Reddit, there is the Suicide Watch subreddit. Things happen on Ask.fm, and Crystal, I'm going to have her a little bit later talk about Tumblr groups. And, we talked with Ning Yu on SPSM about folks who were researching different networks of folks who were talking about suicide to see if networks behave differently, and some had better outcomes and some had less healthy outcomes. And I said, it's really interesting that you would bring this to my attention, Tom, because not only does Ursula Whiteside and Forefront, not only do they have this amazing news event, which I'm going to have Ursula just on next, but we had scheduled for tonight a discussion about social media spaces for peers who are talking about suicide, that they're creating these spaces and building these spaces, and what do we know, what do we not know, and sort of having some commentary. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring you one of our SPS who's been there from the first discussions about SPSM. She's been there like the original tiny little core of crazy piratey lunatics. I'm going to bring you Ursula Whiteside. And Ursula,
hi everybody.
You also have
Good
been
evening.
stricken, right, with the illnesses.
I have been. When you come off a really big week and then all of a sudden the rest of life hits you, and so I've been like sneezing, runny nose, you don't want to know about it, but I'm feeling a little bit better. At least my makeup looks like I'm feeling better.
You look awesome.
But yeah, so there we go. So yeah, we just had this really exciting week. I work at an organization called Forefront at the University of Washington in Seattle, and I'm a research scientist there. And they are aimed at changing the way that suicide is addressed in Washington State and hopefully nationally. I think we're moving more that direction. So we have been working with Facebook since July of this past year to improve the way that their reporting tools function. So reporting is an option that you can do for any post for multiple reasons. You can, in the top right-hand corner, there's a chevron, and you can report a post for pornography, for bullying, for all sorts of things. And suicide and self-injury got wrapped up into that mix. And so the language around it was actually similar to as if you had bullied someone or posted porn. And so it would say things like, you'd been reported, and shame on you almost. And so Facebook was interested in improving that language to be more fitting, compassionate, and helpful. So what we did was change the way, they're called flows, essentially the steps that someone goes through when they are concerned about a friend. We're changing that so that the first recommendation is to reach out directly to your friend, or to reach out to somebody else who is close to your friend that you're concerned about to ask them for help. And then one of the last options is have Facebook take a look at this. So I can tell you more all about it, but this week was something called Compassion Research Day at Facebook. It happens annually, and groups that are working with Facebook, academics who are working on bullying and all sorts of different topics, present their work. We presented this there, and we're kind of surprised. It went like, although you shouldn't be, I guess, if anything with Facebook is going to do that. So go ahead.
Well, I want to, you just notice, like Facebook includes the wonderful Jen Stuber and a bunch of other really wonderful people in suicide prevention. I mean, this has some serious heft behind it. And they get with Facebook trying to come up with a compassionate way for this platform, at least, so that if people are concerned, so if Tom is concerned and about something that's happening and he wants to get help and doesn't know what to do. I mean, Tom has, I'm going to switch camera. Like, Tom has a lot of experience, not only just using social media, but, and I hope, if I categorize it properly, Tom, let me know. If I don't, let me know. But veterans, in my experience, they have an in-real-life network. They have ways of relating and talking that are in a shared culture that happens in real life, and so when they go onto social media, a lot of that sort of translates. So for Tom, culturally, the network and what he can do makes perfect sense, but when he shows up and it's a very different group, I don't know what 14 or 16-year-old teenagers, if those are, I mean, if that's who they are and it's not trolls encouraging children to kill themselves, God, let's hope that's not what's going on. You never really know, right? But so for Tom, there's a network that translates. But Ursula, you're saying, like, when people sort of show up on the space, Facebook's decided they want to make a safer, more compassionate platform, right?
Right. If you see a post, you're concerned about it, you can have Facebook take a look at it, and Facebook will give you, the concerned person, tips on how to interact with your friend, but also will then have Facebook will send some tips and techniques and tools to the person who is in potential distress. So they'll have them make it easier to connect to the lifeline, either by chat or by phone. They'll offer some resources from Now Matters Now, the online public resource that I developed with AFSP funds. So a number of different tools.
Lower, say that again, so people can find it and find you.
Yeah, so intheforefront.org is the organization that myself and a number of fantastic researchers work at. NowMattersNow.org is a public-facing tool that provides evidence-based strategies for managing intense emotions and suicidal thought. Or Now Matters Now. So some of that stuff, it made it into the content that Facebook is now using. But I think important point here is really, obviously, reach out first and foremost directly to your friend. And then also, if you want to offer additional resources or if you want to see what Facebook has to offer, you can also ask Facebook to take a look at it. But that direct contact is probably what's going to be most useful.
And I just want to, like, very quickly, I think you did something that was so smart, Ursula, and so if it's okay, I'd like to point it out. because I just want to really spell it out for folks who are watching, which was long before this project, you decided to start taking skills that anybody can use for coping with severe and painful emotion and develop social media resources people could link to, so that when Facebook was really ready to have something to link to, you had already made something, correct?
Isn't that genius? Isn't that genius?
It is, actually. It's what I'm saying, which is that the better thing would be for us to be involved in social media and be ready, so that when those opportunities happen, then you didn't have to spend time figuring out how to do a video, and how it was already ready.
That's right. So it worked out well.
Yeah, way to go, Ursula. Very smart.
Thanks, team.
So, Bart, what's your reaction to what you're hearing from Tom and from Ursula?
Well, there's a couple things. One, I had the pleasure of getting to see Ursula work a little bit with Facebook, and how compassionate and what a wonderful job she did helping them recognize the perspective of lived experience and the message that they put out, and her patience and her diligence in that matter, because the clip that ended up getting produced is just beautiful. And her work around that, her just being so persistent and having the reputation and the experience to influence Facebook, and for them to respond to that, kudos to them, but also major kudos to Ursula, because it was really good stuff. I mean, for folks that don't realize how much effort, time, and expertise she brought to that, it was phenomenal. So I'm pleased with that, and I think one of the things that listening to Tom, listening to Ursula talk, it's just one of the things that it's really hard for experts to accept is that people are going to reach out, and they're going to reach out in the way that they're most comfortable. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about the virtual online stuff last week, but this notion that people are going to reach out to professionals when they're at risk of suicide first, that's not the culture, and I'm not sure that's ever going to be the culture. Maybe that's pessimistic of me. I'm not even sure I want that to be the culture, to be quite honest.
I agree with you, yeah.
Right, and so one of the things, and listening to Tom talk, listening to Ursula talk, one of the things that I think so many suicide experts miss out is that it's about the relationships. Stupid, right? To go back to that old campaign slogan. It's about relationships. It's about people. It's about being connected to people, and that's happening online. And I can see that happening in ways that's really healthy and helpful, and sometimes it isn't, but that's the nature of human relationships. So one of the things that I see Tom and Ursula doing is, well, let's put ourselves out there and find ways that we can shape this or move this in a more positive direction and create that culture of warmth and caring, and letting groups form and work with themselves. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's the future of suicide intervention, is at a community level. And until we get that really that suicide is a community health problem and that everyone can help, I think that's so key. And I just applaud everybody involved in that.
I was just going to say, too, April, as researchers, it's really easy, or clinicians, it's really easy for us to shut other groups down.
Mm-hmm.
And say, whoa, 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 what are you doing? You don't know this or touch this or look at it. I say, oh my God, thank you so much for your work and your compassion, and would you be willing to talk with us more about that? And would we have some thoughts? Would you be willing to share yours? I mean, that, I think, is the ideal situation.
So I want to speak to that, because this is definitely a theme. I want to, before I speak to that, I'm going to take a very brief second to acknowledge a couple folks. Jessica Reno, you are just a rock star, and I just want to say that you're just asking lots of great questions. And we have, Kendra out there, and Cascadia is out there, and just a bunch of people. Carl Dunn, of course. Julie Sorrell is here. She is the future president-elect of AAS. And if you look, she has some, she's talking about some research that may be pertinent for people to participate in. Please do check her out on Twitter. She is totally new to this Twitter thing as of the last few months, and she's really taking it on with leadership and like a champ. And so we have Julie Sorrell's ear, folks. So I think what we'd want to say again is, do we really want that suicide is something people can only talk about with experts? Or is it a more sane thing? And of course, I'm loading the argument, but I agree with Bart, and I agree with Ursula, I agree with Tom, and Crystal, who we're going to have later. It is more sane to talk about how the peers are going to talk to each other, that those relationships are maybe more valuable, and there may be something really healing and healthy in those connections. And it is not necessarily that we should be shutting those spaces down. because there's a real temptation to want to shut it down because it's alarming if you show up. I don't know. I mean, Tom says I'm used to these kinds of conversations, and there are some communities that are really scary to show up in, the level of risk, right? Right, Tom?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. That this group was just I didn't understand to see it that much put out there into how to even start to begin to help. Because even if I was to get myself involved, I would be bombarded where there would be no time in my day to actually do anything but talk to people.
Correct. And how many of you have ever been to the subreddit, the Suicide Watch subreddit? Crystal?
Mm-mm.
I'm going to put Crystal on. Everybody say hi to Crystal Roach.
Hello, it is me.
Dame with the brain and Twitter, right?
Yeah, I met Dame with a brain.
So, Crystal, very briefly say who you are.
Okay, so my name is Crystal Roach, and I've done a lot of work with Active Minds. I was the president of my chapter, and just a bunch of like mental health advocacy. It's what I want to do once I guess ascend to the adult level. I've heard you guys have cookies, so I'm going to be an adult sometime. But I've seen like on the Reddit, Suicide Watch, and Tumblr, it's just amazing and astounding to get on there and see all of the people who are saying downright that I'm going to kill myself and this is how I'm going to do it. And it's not how I guess the media sometimes portrays it, which is I'm going to write this conspicuous letter and I'm going to hide it and you're not going to know. These are people that are making it very clear for you to know. Like there's no type of you're not even suspicious. It's like, oh well, that's exactly what's going to happen. Okay, that's what they're saying. I don't need to read between the lines.
No, they're very, Tom is being really clear. A lot of people are talking about suicide in a frank way, using social media that they wouldn't do face-to-face, and the research is saying that people are more frank about suicidal thoughts and feelings on Twitter than they are in real life, right? And you said you had been to the Suicide Watch subreddit. Can you talk to people or tell people what that looks like?
Well, I'm more familiar with the Tumblr Suicide Watch.
Why don't you talk about that?
Well, the Tumblr Suicide Watch, I think it gets its inspiration from the subreddit. But basically what it is, it's people can either submit an ask, which is them saying they can do it anonymously, or they can do it as their username and say, hey, this is what's going on with me, blah, blah, blah. Or it could be somebody who says, I found this person, this is what this person is saying, I'm going to provide a link to it for you. And what they're trying to do is reach out to that person, so then they publish, and then they say, hey, everyone, this is going on. Reach out to this person, send them positive messages and things like that. And from what I've seen on the Tumblr Suicide Watch, it appears to be pretty effective for a lot of people. I've followed up on some of the posts, and the person publishes something afterwards like, thank you for all of the positive messages I received. I decided not to kill myself, so on and so forth. So you have to really think like, is this a positive thing for people to have this community? And these people aren't professionals, but they are reaching out, and it seems to be effective for some people.
Yeah, Tom Cruise calls us the paper on the wall people, which we're liking that term. That said, that's right behind me while I'm talking to you, so you're absolutely right, Tom. So Crystal, what you're telling me is if like I showed up and I'm Dr. Foreman and I'm here to help you, like with my name, right? Like that may not be that may be a little wrong-footed, but right. But that some communities use a peer model and each one reach one sort of a model for helping people, and that social media is effective that way.
Right, and I'd say, I guess one of the things that's really good about Tumblr is that it's very easy to find a community. Whereas if you're out on the street, you might not know anybody that has any of your same interests, But on Tumblr, you can just search for somebody, and you'll find a whole community of people with similar interests. So it kind of takes away the situation where I'm all alone in the world. Nobody has the same interests as me. So I think it's easy in that sense where you can find people to interact with. So I think that's a very good strength of Tumblr and a lot of social media.
And I think, and I would like for Bart to comment on this after me, but I think the issue is for a lot of people who have struggled with a history of suicide attempt or thinking about suicide, who have really severe emotional pain, which we know is actually very common. Like, it's a mental health problem that is not so unusual. If you walked out into a busy street, there would be a lot of people who would not tell you that was going on, but you could find people if you could sort of see a little like Sims diamond above their head. Here's that you could all. But there's something about social media that allows people to be frank, open, have, like, in some ways an analog to a therapist room where they feel like it's sort of confidential, where they feel sort of trusting, and they feel a little anonymous. Like, if you and I talk about this, I can exit the social media platform and go back to my life relatively intact. That there may be something valuable about that for peers to do, right?
Right.
And something that if I'm the paper on the wall person, I haven't built that same kind of trust or relationship, and you're worried that I might. And Tom pointed this out in our pre-chat, like that the paper on the wall people have a lot of strings attached to interacting with us, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's been coined that, but that's because, like, for me, I'm just considered another person out there trying to help another person, that I can go to the extra boundaries of calling law enforcement. I can call veterans on the ground. I can call bases. I can call troop commanders. I can go through social media, pages that are open or closed and get as much information as I can, then get warfighters to, be on the ground to that person's house. Whereas you guys, have to worry about, what your laws you're bound by, your HIPAA, your left and right limits, where you guys have left and right limits, where I do not really, because I'm just me.
Right. And Bart, what do you think about this, about the power of peer spaces?
I think they're vital. I think that there's something therapeutic about people being able to disclose that they're having thoughts of suicide. I think that one of the things that increases the likelihood that someone's going to act on thoughts of suicide is that they're not able to get it outside of themselves, get the words out, and have other people hear that. So it's interesting. Some people talk about the cry of pain, and I really like that. Cry for help is a term that I'm not a big fan of anymore. I know some folks still use it. But one of the things that happens in the social sphere is that people are able to say in a safe way, hey, this is inside me, they get it out, and then other people can respond, and there's a safety there. I think one of the things that many people are afraid of, if they say that they're having thoughts of suicide in a more formal setting, they're going to lose control, right? That they don't know what's going to happen, and I think in some instances, mental health professionals can overreact, and I think that there's a freeing element to being able to disclose without maybe what we consider some therapeutic consequences around that. But it gets really interesting because one thing that Tom hits on is that, hey, he's able to do these things, he's able to call the police or get people on the ground and respond without worrying about confidentiality, which is great. At the same time, you hear many people with lived experience saying, never call the police are horrible, we never want the police involved, we don't want people showing up in our lives that we didn't invite into our lives. So you get this really interesting dichotomy about what we all think as helpers, whether we're professional helpers or we're peer helpers, whatever term you want to use, that there's so much variability in what people want, and it's interesting to me, we don't even have any good data about what really works here, right? And so those are things that are, right, where's the research that says the police are saving lives or not saving lives, or that social media is saving lives or not saving lives. I think there's some stuff out there, but there's nothing very concrete. So we're just, right now, we're in this huge gray area, which is really exciting, but also a little scary.
And we don't do well. We don't do well in our field with gray area. And so when we visioned this chat topic, one of the things that I'd hoped that we would comment on were what we thought were characteristics of peer spaces that we thought may be effective in preventing suicide and in supporting people who were experiencing suicidal thoughts, who had history of suicide attempt, who were at risk in some way, and that was protective, and characteristics of places that we thought maybe were not as good, and from a broad variety of perspectives. And so I would like to give each person a chance to sort of comment, because we don't have any research data. It's like we're probably, this group of people, a very small group of people that we know, are some of the most experienced. Is this not nuts? We are some of the most experienced people with this topic. So I'm going to say that one of the things that I think makes a good platform that I've seen, like, I happen to love the moderator for Suicide Watch, and I don't know that everyone would agree with me, but at Suicide Watch, people don't talk about concrete method. Like, they aren't sort of coaching or encouraging, and they also don't allow, the mods decided, a lot of like evangelizing or sort of rescuing. That this is a place where people can just talk about it without to get some sort of connectedness about the topic and some empathy, but not necessarily, with the goal of not necessarily providing contagion, encouragement to like find the higher power, and not suicide or encouragement to step off the edge, right? I think those are good, like, broad but good boundaries, and then they sort of let people be, which I don't hate, quite honestly. I kind of think that's a good idea for places that have a lot of latitude for conversation. Oh, we've lost Ursula. I was like literally ready to click on her. It's gone away. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put Tom in. Tom, you go to a lot of these spaces. What are your thoughts about what makes a good or what makes a bad space?
For me, what I believe is a good space is when you have a very active admin setting. So you have a group that is set up especially for this type of for me, it's veterans. So veterans groups are set up so we understand. Like you said, we talk the same lingo no matter where you've been, where you're at. We all understand each other because we've been there, done that, had this talk. And we kind of can pick up when one of us is down or one of the others. So then you have, in my mindset, a admin group that is somewhat trained. So whether it be QPR, assist, in the military, we've got ACE, SI, we've got MRT. So with a certain skill set, and within there is what we do is just we monitor and keep the page up. And when somebody's actually in a suicidal state or has ideation or just down with any PTSD or anything, we're able to interact. And when we interact, then we can step in and, hey, what's going on, what's going on? What we are actually doing is just a Band-Aid fix. We're not actually solving their problems. We don't know what it caused, financial, marital, school, work, blah, whatever you have it. But we're able to stop that moment. Then when we stop that moment, then this is where we can be the bridge and actually bring them to you people, the people with the papers on the wall, and say, hey, you know what? I have this guy. He's got this issue, this issue. Now that cuts out most of the, the 2-3 weeks of you trying to figure it out because we're bringing right to you, hey, this guy's got this issue. And so it's almost like the ground troops bringing it to you that, hey, this is what his issue, so we can automatically start bringing him resources, whether it be a veteran-based or a civilian-based. And that's a whole other subject for us veterans of whether or not it becomes a veteran talk to another veteran, because I have my experiences talking to civilians. It's still not the same no matter how much experience you have in your field. You haven't been there where I've been. You haven't been what we've done, what we've seen, the trainings and all that stuff, which, like I said, that's a whole other topic for another day. But that's my perfect group right there, is where we can help each other and then bring them to you.
Yeah, can I connect with that? Because I want to speak to that as a person who's involved in this sort of exchange, often at the other end of it. Is it okay?
Yeah.
I have the camera, so God only knows. If it says we're going to switch it anyway. Sorry. When a peer brings me a friend, because this happens because this is the way that veterans work. So veterans have a network and that has an analog on social media. And Tom, if you bring me someone and you tell your friend, you spend time talking to them, and you're like, that is this bad. I really am taking this seriously. I'm sorry, man. And I know this lady who, and I know that the mental health clinic is what it is, and shrinks are what they are, but she's cool. I know her. I trust her. She's helped me, or she's helped my buddy. They'll come in and talk to me, and I start off 3 steps ahead in terms of establishing rapport and being able to help. But the peer is the person who did that. I didn't do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things you're saying is that if you have a few community members who are trained, who just know how to talk to somebody and not be a dick, and be kind, and then just sort of know and have some good, just personal judgment about when to help people as a bridge to help. That is a pretty good dynamic, in my opinion. Would you?
I totally agree. Because the veterans' word of mouth is if we're giving our word to another veteran, that's almost as gold. That's like life or death right there. So when I recommend somebody or another veteran recommends, I'm assuming that he's already vetted them, he's already had experience with them, or he's had buddies who has that, and I'm going to take his word. I'm like, so if I go to you and then you turn out to be a dud, I'll go back to him and go like, hey man, what are you doing to me, man? And then it may be a dialogue. Well, she helped me with this. Oh, okay, that wasn't what I was looking for. So it's more of the community sticks by each other of who we try to recommend to or go to, and that's because that bond, like you said, that bond, that trust at the very beginning is very crucial to whether or not the success of this whole thing goes on or not. I talked to Bill about my experience of dealing with a civilian, which is why I never sought help after that interaction, because I knew that there was never going to be a connection, and then it led to I wouldn't say it led to, but then I had my suicide attempt, which now I was like, well, maybe I should have probably talked to somebody.
I say fire as many shrinks as you got to fire to find somebody you want to talk to. That's what I say.
It's a special bond.
Crystal, give us your opinion, and I'm just sort of going down the queue about what you think are good versus maybe not so good social media spaces for peers.
Well, I think one of the crucial things to have on a social media.
Do a mic check real quick, Crystal. Check your mic because it's a little soft. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
No, it's really soft.
Wait.
There we go.
You can hear me? Okay, I'm speaking louder now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So one of the things that I think is really important is control. So one of the things that I really like about Tumblr and Facebook too is that if somebody's bothering you, you can block them. And Tumblr takes it one step further, where you can actually block an IP address. So if I'm talking about something and I'm saying, oh, I'm having really bad suicidal feelings, and then somebody gets on and says, well, why are you doing that? You're so stupid, blah, blah, blah. I can actually block that person permanently to where they'd have to get on another computer if they wanted to bother me. And that's pretty far even for someone who was trolling someone, I'd like to think. So I think having that control of being able to determine who is in your network and who you don't want in your network, I think is very crucial for a space. One of the things that we've all talked about, and I think is a really bad thing for a space, is no moderation. But in the same respect, I think over-moderation is also a problem. Because if people feel like they're being policed, no one is going to talk about something. If I think that if I say, hey, I'm having really bad feelings, you're going to call the police and send them to my house immediately without even asking, what's going on, then I'm not going to talk about anything. And I think that's why we've opened up so much to social media, because in a lot of ways we feel like this is my space to talk about something and not have people at my house willing to knock down the doors and come in and get me. So I think that that's one of the things that we really need to pay attention to, the moderation on these spaces and just the control, because you don't want to take control away from the person that's already in pain, I think, unless it's like a last resort type thing.
So one of the things I'm hearing sort of for the first couple of commentators is that there's some sort of moderation here, that there's a moderator sort of paying attention to trolling and sort of paying attention to really severe risk, but sort of knows when to leave their hands off. And what I'm hearing from Tom is that there's some engaged members of the community who are experienced that everybody sort of looks to for some sort of cues about what to do. So there's some sort of implantation. There's not the right word. There's some sort of structurally built in, cooked in, a few members of the community that can be relied on, but that aren't paper on the wall people. Right? Is that about right? And you're also saying, and this is great, and I wouldn't have thought of this. So Crystal's also saying that the communities have some sort of built-in way to control what you see and what you hear so that you can take the best care of yourself.
Exactly. And another thing that I think is very important on spaces like Twitter and Tumblr is the usage of tags. So tags also allow me to have control, because if there's something that is a trigger warning for me, I can blacklist it and not even see that on my feed. Whereas on some other sites, someone could put something up and I could be like, oh my gosh, this has made me feel really, really bad. So I think the Tumblr community and other communities that have the usage of tags also really helps in the community for people to talk about what they're going through, because they have that control over what they see and what they don't see.
And I'm going to go on a limb here with you, and I'm going to say that my suspicion is that there's no research because nobody's doing it. Please, I don't know who you are, people with money, national leaders, Facebook, Tumblr, whatever, please sponsor this research. It's really important. It could probably save lives. But for someone to say, like, by and large, my suspicion is people probably would use filters for their benefit, not to kill themselves, like only pick filters that escalate the risk. I think that would actually be, I'm sure some people would do that, but that would actually, my guess is the minority of people. My guess is people who have control of that probably would filter out risk-inducing content and filter in content that is helping them. Not everyone, but my guess is actually the majority of people would. But that's an important question, right? That needs funding.
Yeah.
So Bart, your comment. What do you think makes good spaces or not good spaces?
Well, I think that one of the things that makes a big difference is the culture in terms of what sort of response folks are getting. Is it a space where people take care of each other, nurture each other, listen to each other? Is there a sense of community? I think that's really what it boils down to. Is the space a space where there's a sense of community? And are there folks, I think that are other very wise guests have hit on this, is there anybody that's policing or in some way contributing or creating some borders around that culture? I think that's what makes Twitter so difficult, is because Twitter's so wide open, right? Although it's really hard to create a culture on Twitter because everything is so wide open. That's why I'm a big fan of, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Buddy Project. I've talked a little bit about them in the past. But they do a great job, and I've actually been involved with them and seen them where someone has expressed thoughts of suicide, and then they've gotten a bunch of trolls, and I've seen the Buddy Project actually surround that person, provide support, and then report all the trolls and get those accounts shut down. So that sort of thing is really, really cool. But it's one of the things that expose in a social media format, and they do disclose. What happens next really depends on what kind of responses that they get. And it doesn't necessarily mean there couldn't be some bad ones and it not be helpful if there's other good ones. But if that person isn't getting any positive feedback, they're not getting any support, any compassion, what is that person worse than when before they disclosed or not, right? So that's just one of my concerns is how do we know, and so a culture where there's compassion, support, and a community-based culture around those things are absolutely key to me. And I think there's some sites that are more prone and able to do that than others. I'm not sure Twitter's a great one, but if you look, there's these if you do hashtag depression on Twitter. I mean, you will find accounts where people every single day are posting some of the most heart-wrenching things, right? I mean, really, really, really painful stuff. And it's really hard to know, is this therapeutic for them? Is this, in fact, is this a release for them, or is this a trouble spot for them? So those are, and to look at some of the responses that they get sometimes is horrible, right? It can be really painful to see.
And the issues of when there are people who are actively wrongdoers, like I hate to say evildoers, but and DeWitt made a wonderful comment about, like, is the way to create a loving community tools to filter out the mean folk? Like, is that really what we're talking here? And Crystal is saying at least be able to sort of filter what you see or don't see for her. But I'm going to say that what actually Crystal's talking about is that individuals have control over who's in their feed and who's in their community. The individual has the control is what we're actually talking about, not getting rid of all mean folk. I'm thinking of trolls like on 4chan, which is really the Wild West, and so that there are people who, for entertainment, enjoy encouraging destructive things, including suicide, and so. Boy, social media allows you to harm people in a way who are vulnerable in a way that they couldn't before. But my guess is that that's probably the exception, that we're hearing a lot more altruism in altruistic communities. And I'm about ready to get to you, Ursula. But before I get to you, Ursula, this is sort of topical. I want to give a shout out to Amelia with a picture with her cold medicine too. She appears to not this sort of winter illness is sort of grabbing everyone. And so Ursula, I'm going to pull you up. Are you
Yep.
muted, Ursula?
I'm here. Hi.
So we started this, and so we're closing with you. The question that we have on the books is, like, how do we, what sites do we think, or what are the qualities of sites that we think are good for people, peer spaces that we think are really good, and ones that we think are not so good?
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking to before we began this hour, which is that these sites that have people kind of expressing their feelings openly have massive amounts of people coming to them. If we could get this many people in our therapy offices, we would be so rich, but we're not. And so if I'm somebody who's suicidal, I want to be able to share my experience with somebody else who's going to understand and who's going to listen and not judge me. And I may not have the right words to do that in a way that's effective when I start out with this experience. I might not do that in a way that's healthy for other people. I'm somebody in the dark, feeling my way through a dark room, trying not to run into things. And so from the clinical perspective, we think a lot about what is effective behavior, what's not effective behavior. We think about shaping behavior over time, all of these things. And we have a lot of assumptions that talking about suicidal behavior is harmful. And yet we're not, it sort of depends on in what context, for what people, and in what situations and what time points, and all of those sorts of things. So for me, what makes a healthy situation is one where I come in and I know what the expectations are from the outset. I've got the rules, I've agreed to them, and I go in with that. And then also that there are people there who've been through it and who have been successful and can give me tips and feedback and can say, oh yeah, I was there, and here's what I did, here's some tools that are effective for getting through. If you just want me to listen, I'll do that. If you say this, I'm going to have the mobile crisis unit come, just so you know, so that there's just real clear boundaries around it, but with models of success and sharing of real experiences of how people got through hard times who've been there. So that's what I hope.
I like what you just said, which is like letting people know when I would have to like call rescue, so that because. Yeah. Bill Schmitz, I'm sure will comment, but I often talk with people and I say, if you want to know what the rules are to how this goes in my office, not online because I won't do this online. It's one of my boundaries. But I say so that if you aren't telling me that you're ready to harm yourself imminently or someone else, or you're not grossly impaired, we can talk all day. But so you need to know. So if you don't want me to put, an involuntary hospitalization, this is how you have control over that. And because I still have a duty, but I also want to give you control. And you're saying the analog for that are these peer spaces where people know when they're entering the space what the agreements are to the space, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Going in.
I wish that Tim Cox was here, because what I love about Tim is that he's a person who, he has probably one of the bigger internet presences of anybody that we've had on, largely because he runs a Lady Gaga fan community, right? We love you, Lady Gaga, and by the way, like, you totally did a great job on the Oscars. I don't know if you don't care what I think, but let me tell you. Elle was awesome. And it turned out that fan base wanted to talk about mental health issues because Lady Gaga does encourage people to talk about their mental health needs and be open and not be ashamed, to not have stigma. He does a great job of promoting that. It's truly amazing in my opinion. And so for Tim, and Crystal, you may be able to tell more of Tim's story because you're part of the Text Talk Act crew, which is how we've met. And I'm going to pull you up for our last few minutes before we go to final thoughts. But for him, it became, he said, I had to sort of develop this skill about talking about mental health because I had a community that was ready to do it. And I thought it was a Lady Gaga community, right?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about Tim's community and what you know about all that.
Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to say Tim is awesome. And what I know about his community is that he runs videos and talks about Lady Gaga, but from what I've got from Tim is that it went more, and we have this now community he has with people where everybody knows each other. People are willing to disclose things with each other and talk about their mental health stuff that's really, really deep for them, where they're not comfortable in talking about it with other people. And this developed all from the mutual like with Lady Gaga. So he's able to now reach out and help people, and everybody, like, people are receiving the help that they need, it seems, through this mutual community.
And by the way, what I kind of like about that, I don't know if I'm saying this right, and Ursula, Tom, Bart, you all sort of chime in. What I like about that is people aren't just showing up of, we're here today to talk about suicide, but that people are three-dimensional. They have interests, and they have a mental health need, but they also have, they're full people in a way that if you come to my office, and we probably might get dinged for talking about Lady Gaga too much, right? Like, that's not clinical, right? Any comments? I'm pointing at the gallery below. Any comments on what you think about that? Like, if people are talking about mental health in sort of non-mental health specific arenas.
Thank God.
Yeah, no kidding. I think it's vital. I think that one of the things, and I think you even see this to some extent among survivors, and I'm just gonna that sometimes we take ourselves too seriously, and the focus is too clinical or too specific. Well, now we're going to talk about suicide, and here's some things we're not going to do. We're not going to have fun. We're not going to laugh. We're not going to joke around, right? And I think it's so detrimental. And I think that one of the things that's so vital, and I just, when you look at our media and our culture, suicide permeates our culture in terms of music, in terms of every movie I've watched recently. Suicide has been an ongoing theme. So here it is. We have these stories, and we have these opportunities to talk about suicide in a meaningful way, and we watch movies about it, and we listen to songs about it, but then we're not able to talk about it or connect around those things, and it's really, really frustrating. And so I think one of the things is that it's that whole idea of whether suicide's real or not real. Right? Mm-hmm. And when we talk about it, and we talk about it in settings other than in clinical settings or in formal settings, we're really emphasizing this is a real thing, it's a part of human experience, and we can be human about it, which means we can laugh and joke about it. And yeah, I think sometimes that's quite appropriate, and people need to be able to feel safe. And I think when we talk about suicide, some people are so afraid about saying the wrong thing. Oh. What if I say this and somebody gets upset, or what if this is triggering somebody else, right? Or what if somebody thinks I'm callous or don't get it? So in fact, all of these things it feed into the discrimination and prejudice around suicide, right? Because it's not seen as a part of normal human experience. It's got to be treated differently or special, right?
Absolutely, and I'm going to give Ursula that second to comment before we do final thoughts. So this is sort of our wrapping this up. What were your thoughts about this, Ursula?
No, I'm agreeing with Bart that this is part of the normal human experience to a large extent. We all go through difficult experiences, difficult times. We engage in different types of behaviors. We have to be able to talk about it. We have to be able to talk about it in a way that feels not judged and heard. And also, if something is alarming, we can get that feedback, but at the same time, it can be within the context of a community where you're also, I don't want to be too soft here, but sort of held at the same time as being given feedback that, like, well, actually, that is a little bit harsh. What you're thinking about doing, or how you're viewing yourself, I want to pull you back to reality and have you look at it this way. That we can do both of those things, hold someone and also say, wait a second, at the same time.
One of the great things about social media is that it overcomes one of the fundamental risk factors related to suicide, which is you become very separated and isolated and withdrawn, mm-hmm. right? And it's just connecting with anybody is very, very protective and healing, reduce pain. And if my mission in life is to help people in pain, like helping people be connected to each other, even sometimes when it is talking about their pain, this may work. Also, Tom, in that room where there are 6,600 people, you know what we don't have? I'm going to tell you this right now. We don't have 6,600 therapists to talk to them. We just don't. If everybody suddenly showed up at the doctor's office saying, I would like treatment now for my severe emotional pain, there would be no mental health appointments. there just wouldn't be enough of us. The paper on the wall people aren't enough of us, and Bill Schmitz will tell you we aren't well enough trained anyway.
And April, I just want to add too, like half of our difficulty is not in that people are expressing their suicidal thoughts and their emotions. It's that we aren't trained as a people that, and to talk about emotions and to be present with people. Like that's the real problem here. It seems like.
But yet we have wonderful people like Crystal. We have people like Tom. People like Tim. These are people like. This military culture I'm in makes me say the word civilian a lot more than I ever did before. But you have folks who are on the wall people that are just everyday people who are really good about being compassionate, who are making a difference. Mm. We're getting to time. I want to do a couple thank yous because I'm working on these outros. So everybody, but we're going to do this before final thoughts. Please do find us and like the SPSM Chat Facebook page. This is where I post when our chats are coming up and information. I also just need to make an ask of this community. You are sending me content, and this is really amped up in its intensity, and it's excellent content. But this really, if you will send it to the Facebook page, this is getting shared and discussed in a way that's really helpful. So it's at facebook.com /thing SPSM chat if you want to find it. Please do that there. Please do follow us on Twitter. If you have a topic or you're interested in something, message me. We'll put together a show. This community's engagement astounds me, and thank you. Thank you. Thank you to Sean from Stuck on Social Work, who has been moderating his ass off. He's fantastic. And then I would like for each of our guests to just take a minute. You like moderating our ass off? Is that what we like?
I'm tweeting that.
He's great. And for the many of you,
the explicit tag.
Damn. So I'm going to start with Ursula. I'm going to work my way down to Bart. Give us your final thought of what you think in a few sentences. Take home for tonight. Go ahead, Ursula.
I just want to make a shout out to Unsuicide, who is going through chemo treatment right now and who has been a huge leader in this community, and hopefully she's feeling a little bit better. But I think as we keep including these voices and adding new voices to our community, you know, we thought the suicide community was researchers. We thought it was much smaller than it is. It's enormous, and there are so many resources, and I can't wait to continue to take advantage of that and build our community.
Thank you. Yes, we thought the community was researchers. It turns out that it's all of us, or it's a whole lot of us. That was brilliant. Tom.
Yes. Thank you. It was an honor to be on here. I appreciate it. I hope to come back more often. And Ursula, love what you did with this. It was well needed. I hope we can continue to build off this. I think it's a great project. It's one that's been needed right now, and hopefully it expands to more than what it is, and we can help finally get to the people that need the help.
Tom, well, if you were going to speak, let's say you had a minute to put a bug in the ear of the people like you who are just the stalwart, engaged members of vibrant communities, and you were going to give them a message, if you were going to coach them about the bottom line of how to make their spaces healthier for people to be there and have pain, like what would you say?
To the groups?
Yeah, to the folks who are fulfilling your role in other places.
Just continue to go on. They continue to get the training, and then my ultimate goal, like I'm trying to do now, is actually work with the paper on the wall type people to bring these people to you and to go out and seek that training, whatever training us people can get to further our education, research, to become more compassionate, to not only help myself internally, which is what I use it a lot for, but also to bring it to other people to not be in the same situation I was in and I put others in. So basically go get the training and bring these people to you guys.
So one of the things is you're saying, like, if you really want to be a member of a large internet community, you might consider some assist training. It would be awesome. And you probably need to find ways to get people funding to do that if they ever sort of demonstrate a lot of engagement with social media.
Your local crisis centers, I know mine down here in Tampa, the crisis center actually has trainings that are free, like ASSIST and QPR and some other well-known trainings. So your local crisis centers can provide you with that type of training for free.
Perfect. And Crystal, final thought.
Well, first I just wanted to put in a shameless plug for Text Talk Act for creating community solutions, because
Yay.
the whole purpose is to engage young people in a conversation about mental health. And what I've gotten from this is that these conversations are important, and the communities are what's making a difference, the connection through the communities. So I think that needs to continue, and we need to keep progressing with the technology and maybe play a little bit of catch-up too.
And then Bart, bring us home. Oh, Bart. We've gone dark, Bart. I feel like I wish I could cut to a pocket square. Bart's a little frozen. Bart, message us, tell us, give us your last line, give us your wisdom. Damn! We were almost good. You spent another hour with SPSM. We're really grateful that you were here with us tonight. Please, if this video... Oh, there we are, Bart. Do a final thought.
Final thought. One, watching the Twitter feed, our SPSM chat members are the most amazing folks on the planet. It was so, I mean, they're just amazing group. Just watching the comments and the thoughtfulness and the amount of wisdom in this group is just amazing. And my one final thought, and I think Tom hit on this, and April, you did as well. When you look at the military's response to suicide, whether they're experts or professionals or not, when they hear about a loss, it hits them so deeply because it's one of them, right? There's this sense of this is one of ours, and we need to broaden that out. And I don't see that. I think people find ways to differ. This happened to somebody else. It's not a part of my group. And we really need to. When we lose someone to suicide, we have to have the same reaction that the military folks have, the veterans have. This is one of ours. I think if we take that approach and broaden that out, we could do wonderful things. So that's my final comment.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you, Leonard Nimoy. You've had another hour with us. Thank you for being here. You make my week, you guys. You're wonderful. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video if there was some good. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye.